Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello people and welcome to Footy Judge Mo. I am Judge Mo and this is your Rational League show with a lot of rational people that can talk about football without yelling and screaming at each other. I'm not sure if this is your favorite show or the other shows are your favorite. Everything is different. People have different opinions and different taste in football. Chelsea absolutely pathetic yesterday, losing to Liga Warsaw at home. Of course, Cole Palmer hooked because he was bad. Cole Palmer is declining massively. What is going on at Chelsea? They need to win against Fulham to actually make Champions League. Newcastle have won 5 against Crystal Palace to jump 4 points behind Arsenal. And now Chelsea are in danger of missing out on Champions League next season. That is absolutely ridiculous. Man United and Spurs heroics yesterday. Can we see Man United Spurs final? How about their season? Is that a proof that Europe this season has been weak, Europa League, or is it proof that English football is absolutely better than a lot of leagues in the world at the current moment? I think we'll have to wait and see and discuss that. Virgil van Dijk signed a 400K contract in Dan's face. 400K contract, a 400K a week contract, Dan. Just a response to the Van Dijk versus John Terry now. Most expensive and highest wage. A joke. But 2 years contract for Van Dijk is absolutely amazing for Liverpool. They keep him at the club along with Mohamed Salah. He's the highest ever paid defender in the history of the Premier League. I'm not sure if it's the history of the sport actually at the current moment. Hit the like button, people, if you are here now. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, of course. Everyone is hyped about the Champions League and Europa League and everything. The league is back tomorrow. Of course, the only thing that matter, of course, is the Chelsea, Man City, Aston Villa, Newcastle, Nottingham Forest top 4. The league is done for Liverpool. Arsenal not even chasing the league. But listen, we should start with Chelsea. Chelsea. I'll be in the Stamford Bridge next season, hopefully, one day.
To watch what? A relegation battle? Or?
No, I thought you're gonna. I thought Chelsea fans think that they're gonna challenge for the league next season.
I mean, I guess that was the original plan. Is that the trajectory would suggest that we'd be sort of moving forwards in a linear fashion, which the owners expected. But as a lot of us warned them, football isn't linear, and it isn't, especially if you take massive risks with managers who haven't been at the highest level. I think that's important to remember here, is how much of a risk was taken with hiring Maresca. And a lot of people sort of suggested that this was a potential problem that could arise. And a lot of Leicester fans warned Chelsea fans quite vocally that this is a situation you might come across. And I think we're seeing it now firsthand of how bad and how dire the football can be, and how important it is to get results at a club the size of Chelsea. Otherwise, the pressure really does start to add up.
Before we go on to this and trajectory, and there is a question that I'm going to ask you later. What happened in the game? It's in the football. What happened in the game?
Yeah, Chelsea. From judging what Maresca said afterwards, we pretty much apparently set up to manage the game a little bit differently. I think being 3-0 up, he probably felt like we could sort of take our foot off the gas and manage that performance and do enough to get through. But I think you can never underestimate the weight of losing a European tie at home and what that might do for you as a coach, to be honest. And I think it's the wrong approach. He played a really strong team, and I think we ultimately just saw a really diabolical performance and a real sort of highlight of just how drab and boring this football can be, and it just fails to get fans on side, especially when Stamford Bridge was the lowest attendance it's ever been. I think 29,000 was the official number, which is probably about 10-11 below capacity, and most of the noise was generated and atmosphere was generated from the Warsaw fans that come over.
Can I ask a question to everyone in the panel? I asked this to Don yesterday. If Chelsea don't get top 5 and don't get Champions League, which looks likely now, if you manage Chelsea, should Maresca be sacked, or should he be given another year based on what you have seen this season? The answer for some people was yes. The answer was no. For example, Ziad said yes. Don said no, because he thinks that he have seen enough from Maresca earlier this season to suggest that he can actually play good football, even though he had bad game management, and he criticized that a lot. But do you think that Maresca should be sacked if you get top 5, or the context will matter?
I think I would say they should keep him. More so for the reason of probably.
Why are you laughing? He just is explaining.
Yeah, no, more for the reason is that
because Jamie couldn't even look up to me when he said it. He looked down. Like, right, how am I going to work this one?
They should keep them. They're doing really well. They're underachieving. No, I think the thing is with Chelsea is, and I think with these new ownership, and we've talked about this a good bit. I don't know. I think the mentality of Chelsea Football Club, what we've known as and what we've grown up with in the Abramovich era, is shifting. And I don't know if that's for the good or for the bad, but I just think the way they want things to go, maybe, no, you know what? I think they should sack him, but I don't think they will. That's probably a better way of saying it, because
forget that he would or not. What would you do?
Yeah, I think they should sack him. Sorry. But I think that they won't, because he fits exactly the type of manager that they want within their project. Someone that will just kind of tip along, listen to what they say, they'll buy the players that they want, sell the players that they want. And even the whole stuff that went on in the summer, they were like, this is the squad of players you have, we're buying a few more and you're going to fit them in, these players are gone. And he had to make a few changes, he had to get Sterling out the door, which I know there's a lot of stuff about that, and he obviously went to Arsenal. But yeah, I think they probably should sack him, because if I'm thinking about Chelsea and the club that I knew growing up, Liverpool and Chelsea had huge confrontations in Europe and the Premier League, and I just don't look at them the same way now. I don't have that fear when I play Chelsea anymore. And I know Liverpool have gotten better, but it's just every time you went to Chelsea, even when going to Stamford Bridge now in a few weeks, I know Liverpool will potentially be champions by then, but even going into that game, I'd be that's a really hard place to go. Whereas the last few seasons, I haven't felt like that, even though they have been obviously a bit up and down. But yeah, I think the mentality in the club around Chelsea is shifting a little bit now, and I think it's just a weird situation.
Yeah, for me, I agree. I would probably look at, if what you're saying happens, I'd probably look at sacking him. I've said this last time on your show. I always look at every single manager at any club through the lens of progression. I understand, and I gave the United example to mention that, okay, yes, they're going through a lot of crap, they're losing a lot of games, but then when people talk about Ruben Amorim and they say, yeah, but he doesn't have his players yet, I just think about it from this perspective. If you have sacked a manager and you're bringing in someone new, nobody's saying go win a title or go win this or go win that in the first season. Of course not. Or maybe not even the first 2 or 3 seasons, right? There is progression, obviously, but there has to be some sort of improvement. There has to be some sort of change. If I'm asking the previous manager to leave because I think he's not doing a good enough job, it means the next person that comes in has to start elevating the team slowly, and obviously do the building blocks and all of that kind of stuff. And if you compare Chelsea this season with last season, I get Chelsea fans will mention some of the playing style issues with Pochettino, some of the selections, having Ben Chilwell play left wing and Colwell playing left back and stuff. Yeah, and I 100% echo that. But the reality is, I think Chelsea's team is better this season than last season, right? I think the teams that finished above Chelsea last season, like City, Villa, and Spurs, are worse this season than they were last season. I know people give the context of Villa in the Champions League, which is fair, but from a league perspective, they're not as good. So this was a position for Chelsea. This was an opportunity for Chelsea to get into the top 4. Look, even if they don't, it's fine. But the reality is, if they end up finishing 6th or 7th, then my question to Chelsea fans would be, and maybe Dan can help us with this, is there a significant improvement from Pochettino last season? Is there even any sort of improvement from Pochettino last season? And if there isn't, I would say then, yeah, it's probably lack of progression, in which case that question should not be out of the window, which is of sacking him.
I think statistically, numbers-wise, there might be an improvement in terms of defensively. I think we conceded over 60 goals. I actually don't know what we're at. And obviously, there's still a few games to play. I think 8 as a minimum is still what Chelsea have left to play. I think going forward as well, we've created a lot of chances in games, but that seems to be the only way people are finding a method to defend Maresca is some of the numbers that are there. I think when you look at the underlying metrics that can be judged without stats, which is how the majority of the match-going fans judge him, I think his performance and what he's saying in press conferences and his decision-making during games has been highly underwhelming, to be honest with you, and incredibly poor at times. And I think that's the biggest issue I think people are starting to find with Maresca. And I think there's probably going back to what Jamie said as well, is there's a shift. And I think there is. I think this board and this ownership have got a new way of doing things. They've got a whole different understanding of how football works. I don't think they're results based around they don't have the same amount of weight and importance around results as what our previous ownership did. I think they view results in a financial fashion probably as more important, and I think ultimately that's where Chelsea are heading right now. Unless there is a massive sort of change in the focus from the ownership, I don't see them wanting to go for a different manager. Even if they judge Maresca as not the right guy, I still think they'll move in the same direction with someone similar. It's going to take a whole 180 for this sort of situation to change and the fear to be injected back into this Chelsea side and look like a force for the Premier League. But right now, we're just heading in one direction only.
Just on that, sorry, Mo. Just on that as well, I was looking, because I think with the Pochettino and the Maresca like eras, Pochettino's end was really good and Maresca's start was really good. So I was just looking at the 2024 table, like just over the calendar year. So Arsenal at 85 points, Liverpool 85, Man City 82, and Chelsea 70. So like they have had like good moments. You know what I mean? I think Palmer's obviously contributed a lot to that. Like he had a really, really good 2024. I think
Poch had a really good finish as well.
That's what I mean.
Were sort of top 4 in the form guide.
Yeah, so like I think there is signs that there is like the makings of a good team there, but my thinking will be I just don't know if the board have like that same ambition. I think it's like a hope, like they hope that their model propels them to like glory, and that would be like a big win. But it's more about like looking at Chelsea as a business now and like how can we make the most money in terms of buying and selling players.
Jamie, do you think, like, I don't know, and obviously I don't want to sort of speak for these guys, but someone like Abramovich was already was worth billions and billions of dollars, and not that these guys aren't, but he needed Chelsea to show off what he'd done as a guy, and this was like his product, and it was going to win, and it was going to resemble that. Whereas these guys, the way they get judged isn't they'll be judged on how much money they're worth and what this business creates for them, and that's how they measure their success. So I think they've got really different measures of success. So in Abramovich's world, it was about having a really successful football team, and he was the guy that did it. and he'd go on his yacht and people would want to speak to him and they'd ask him about his team. Whereas people in Egbali and Todd Bowley's world, they speak to them about numbers and figures and how much they've made after selling this. And if they buy it for 2-3 billion and sell it for 10 billion 10 years later, it's an incredible turnaround in terms of the numbers and the values, and all their investors are very, very happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they measure their success. So there isn't the force from above and the pressure for the, and I think that only comes when they realize that their numbers will be hindered, when they realize like the results do actually have an impact in that. I think that's when the change comes, is when their finances get hit because results have gone away. I think we touched on it very briefly last episode.
Yeah, like what you
My
said
only
there.
confusion. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say my only confusion then would be like why, because okay, you maybe you can explain why they've sacked Tuchel. Fair enough, they were not happy, things were going downhill, but then they sacked Graham Potter after giving him a 5-year contract, and then they sacked Pochettino after one season. For me, that feels like such a strange change then, because I assumed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, I assumed they sacked him because he didn't get top 4, because they were looking to make that Champions League money as well. So if this doesn't happen again this season, what would be their logic to continue with him?
That they feel like we're going to be moving in the right direction, and that as a business model, he fits exactly what they expect from their manager.
Yeah.
It's if they feel like this manager is going to improve the players enough that they can generate profit off of selling them, manage this squad that's given to him without too many murmurs and questions, and keep them sort of ticking over in competitions that they earn enough money to, keep the books rolling and pay the wages and keep people at the club and allow them to sign new players that they view as opportunities. I think that's where they're judging the manager. I really don't think right now that the results side of things is the number one priority for a manager at Chelsea. I think Poch got removed from his post because they didn't have a good working relationship with him, rather than what happened on the pitch. That's how I view that one. I think Poch started to question a couple of the signings, started to want players staying at the club that were obviously going to turn a huge amount of profit for Chelsea. We're talking like 40-30 million for a couple of players that he wanted to stay, and he wasn't too happy with it. But I think what's happening now is we're seeing they would have been sort of, I'm not suggesting they're going to sell Cole Palmer or a couple of other players, but they would have had someone like Cole Palmer come in for 40 million. At one point last year under Pochettino, a footballing guy, he was probably going to be estimated around 100, 120 million if you were to sell him. I think now we've probably seen the decline of Cole Palmer enough that figure's probably moved south quite a lot. Then now they wouldn't be able to sort of generate the same amount of profit as they once could. So it'll be moments like that where I think this board will see that they might have to change the direction, because results will determine the value of players, and that's where they're going to have issues. So I think that's the only way you'll see managers sort of leave their post.
I actually have another approach to this at all. We all question Liverpool, we all question Arsenal, we all question other clubs we all question Newcastle, for example, about why would Isak stay in Newcastle and reject Man City or something? Why would Gyökeres join Arsenal? Why would this guy join Man United? But this question never get to be asked about the Chelsea player that signed a 9-year contract that we all rate very highly. We all rate Caicedo high. We all rate Palmer high. Some people rate other players high as well. Now, Enzo Fernandez is performing. There were rumors that Barcelona are looking into him, or Atletico Madrid. He's Argentinian. Diego Simeone loved the Argentinian players, like he's a teammate of Rodrigo de Paul, Julian Alvarez, that is there. But we never get to ask these questions, and every time we ask these questions, we get the answer from the majority of the Chelsea fans, not you, Dan. He signed a 9-year contract. We were never going to sell them. They're never leaving. But the same thing when we asked about Isak, when we talk about Newcastle, who has a contract with Newcastle with one option for 2028, they tell you, but what if a player wants to go? That question never gets asked about. What if Cole Palmer wants to shine again? What if Cole Palmer thinks, oh, these owners are not serious? They hired a manager that is a novice. I want to shine. I was arguably one of the best players in the Premier League last season. This season, I wouldn't even get in the team of the season. What if he wants to go?
Did you see his Instagram post?
No, the one from last game.
Yeah, well, it's like last week, I believe, or this weekend. There was a post
entertainment.
Entertainment, right? So, I mean, read into that what you will, but I think if a player's starting to put that out, I think you have to start reading between the lines that maybe he isn't finding the same entertainment in the football this season that he was finding last year. And I think as a footballer, enjoying your job is probably one of the main things that sort of decides where you want your future to head, to be honest with you. I think we have to remember that these guys, as much as they're on unbelievable money and they sign into these contracts, their happiness sort of dictates where they want to be and where they want to go and if they want to move. They are human beings at the end of the day.
But can I tell you the truth then? Like, actually, Cole Palmer, with all due respect to everyone, is worth in the market. That's how I value him. About 250K a week at least. As much as a lot of... If Kai Havertz is in 280K, surely Cole Palmer is worth that much money, right? Surely.
There's question marks around him now, isn't there?
Man, that's how he's thinking. He's thinking, I scored this amount of goals.
Of course, yeah.
He's, from the fact that he played that well last season, he's thinking, if I just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know the word in English. When like, if I still catch it now before it goes downhill from here, maybe I still can get that wage.
You call it striking whilst the iron's hot.
Yeah, like, I still have the repetition of last season. I still have the young player of the season last year. People still remember my season. Years go by and the project is not doing well. Maybe I can't go to Barcelona or Real Madrid or Juventus, whatever, or Bayern Munich and say, well, I am worth 200. His agent cannot go and say, I need 300K. I need a 5-year contract, 300K, because, bro, you haven't been playing well in a team for 2 years now. Why do we give you that much money for a season that you played 3 years ago? Maybe that is the question that needs to be asked. You know what I mean? What if these players want to go? Because we always talk about Chelsea getting new players, but we never talk about Chelsea's best players wanting to win. Because all the players want to win, right? Like,
I think Caicedo will definitely have a massive market. Like, let's assume Chelsea's best players are saying, yeah, you know what, we want to leave, we want to look at other clubs. I think Caicedo has a tremendous market because a lot of clubs will be looking at DMs. Palmer, as incredible as he is, and I think he's talented. I don't know if I would call him world class yet, but I think he's at the cusp of that, or eventually will get there. As crazy as it sounds, and I said this about Salah as well, I don't think that market exists where the biggest clubs will say, I need that player in my position. Like, I think about Bayern Munich and I'm like, would they want to have him and Musiala? I think about Real Madrid and I'm like, would they want to add him in the midfield? Unless they want to play him on the right, which I don't know if they'd want to do, like, to be honest. I don't know if even Palmer would want to play over there.
Actually, I think that Cole Palmer and Real Madrid is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I think that too.
Match made in heaven.
As well.
But where would he play there, you think?
A 10. He's they don't have Modric leaves. They basically have runners and a moment player in Jude Bellingham. They have no creativity in that midfield.
So you're saying they'll move Bellingham to the 8?
Yeah.
You're saying they'll move Bellingham to the 8? Oh,
yeah, they move Bellingham into the 8.
I'd say they could sell Rodrigo and then bring Palmer in, put him on the right hand side. You have Vinny, Mbappe, Palmer, and Bellingham. So that would be an option.
I think that.
I think he's better playing off the right as well.
Yeah, I agree, Jamie. I was watching Leon last night, right? And I was looking at Cherky, and when he'd sort of drop into the 10 space, he had the ability of going both ways. And I think of someone like De Bruyne, he had the ability of going both ways. When I watch Cole Palmer play in the 10, he's very limited to be only being able to go in one direction. And I think when that has caused a real issue in Maresca's system, that he's so limited to only moving in one direction on his left foot, that I think he's almost become predictable for teams to sort of be able to shield him, sort of jockey him over to the sideline, push him onto the fullback. Fullback forces him into just a cross. And we're seeing that action quite a lot with Cole Palmer. And I think actually when I look at other players that have played in the 10, they're not as many of them are that limited to one foot. And when they are, there's a couple I think spring to mind. Someone like David Silva, someone like Juan Mata. They're incredibly good on the half turn, like someone like Phil Foden as well. They're incredibly good in that sort of position. Whereas I think I look at the way Palmer plays, he almost sort of mimics someone more like Mahrez rather than someone like a David Silva, if you see what I mean. Whereas out on the right wing, he works his shot really well.
Yeah. The one thing I would say about Palmer is I think when he moved to Chelsea, he obviously hit an unbelievable start, and I think he was probably overperforming maybe a bit of where he was at. So then what happened is his expectations of everyone who watched him said, that's what you should be doing every single week. And I think he obviously has dipped a little bit now where he's not obviously performing to that level. But I think it's maybe somewhere in between.
No goal in 15, by the way.
Exactly.
that
But
is-
I think he's somewhere in between those two. I think that's the level that he can kind of like reach for, but like it probably just drop just below that. I think even like it's more whatever about the goals, but he's nowhere near as involved in the games. I think we see that with Chelsea when they go forward. They struggle to create, and he was a lot of the creating attacking threat when they were going forward, and we're just not getting it with him now. And I think that's a big reason as to why Chelsea are struggling.
I agree with you,
This
Jamie. I
is
don't
wrong.
think people.
This is wrong by Egal, by the way. Real Madrid took Brahim Diaz. They took Arda Güler. Real Madrid don't always take the ready-made players. And Cole Palmer is way more proven than Brahim Diaz and Arda Güler.
Yeah, but there's a difference. No, these players, how
English
much
tax.
did they spend? No, not just English. Exactly. How much did they spend on Brahim Diaz and Arda Güler? They didn't. They're not going to spend that same money on Cole Palmer. No way.
Has
If
Cole
Cole
Palmer
Palmer's
not had
available-
does Cole Palmer, did he not have a better individual season last year than what Jude Bellingham ever had for Dortmund?
Yeah, of course.
He did. So I think he's done enough to get a move to Real Madrid. I think his name got to a level. The only thing with someone like Cole Palmer is I don't know if that's the type of player that Madrid would be after in terms of
Marketable.
Marketability. I mean, he is definitely marketable with the celebration stuff, but I don't know how that type of player works in Spain. I think someone like
he's
Cole
real
Palmer,
English marketable, like chippy chips.
he is, right? Like chippy chips and stuff. That's the thing that just doesn't exist. He's going to be like going over to Spain, and they wouldn't get that sort of humor and stuff, would they? I don't think.
Plus, I feel that would be a wrong choice for them. They're already struggling with 3 guys who don't track back all the time. And I'm not. Look, I believe that some elite attackers should not be asked to track back as much, but I think that doesn't solve their defense unless they go and get like 2 world-class centre backs. I know they're obviously looking after Saliba. If they get like 2 world-class defenders, a full-back, and all that kind of stuff, then maybe. But if you're adding Trent as a right back, which is a good addition going forward, and also having Cole Palmer on the right, I just feel you get exposed a lot.
It's perfect though, because where Trent will either overlap or pull the width, Cole Palmer will drift inside on that left foot, and I think that would be a really nice balance. I think we saw that a lot last year with someone like Gusto. He sort of would drift that wide, he'd pull wide, and it allowed Cole Palmer to go into that space that was sort of left by no sort of winger or fullback sort of entering there, where now Gusto's going inverting all the time. He sort of cramps Cole Palmer's space. So look, I don't know whether or not there's a Real Madrid move or the money would ever be paid, but I do think not playing in the top competitions and look, if we don't win the Conference League, there's a chance Chelsea don't play Europe next season with our current form, or we do get Conference League again or something like that with our current form. It's incredibly difficult to keep these guys motivated to play in competitions like the Conference League again. I think we saw that last night. I think they knew that game was done, and they thought, we're 3-0 up. Why on earth, or 3-1? Why on earth do we need to push on to win this game when it's already done? And if we just turn it on a little bit, we'll win the next game. But we've all seen what complacency can do to teams. I mean, Villa kind of showed that against Olympiacos last year in that competition.
It's not a full-on conclusion that you win the Conference League. And I think
Betis is good.
And I actually think that if Chelsea finish 7th, I'm not sure, can someone confirm? If Chelsea finish 7th, do you play Europa League? Because I know the FA Cup winner play Europa League and the 6th play Europa League, because the top 5 get Champions League, because England gets only 2 teams in Europa League. So that means the 7th and the 8th both go to Conference League, if I'm not mistaken. Or do you get only 1 team in Conference League, which is 7th?
Who gets Conference League from the League Cup?
No.
Or from, because obviously Newcastle and Liverpool will probably get Champions League.
I am not sure.
Is it the League Cup or the FA Cup?
FA
League
Cup.
League Cup goes to Conference League. FA Cup goes to Europa League.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
So that means there's going to be 3 teams? Does that mean there's going to be 3 teams? Does that mean there's going to be 3 teams going to Conference League?
Who were the semi-finalists of the League Cup? Or do they just go, right, if both have qualified for Champions League, we just give it back to a position in the league? I don't know how they work that out.
Well, look it up, maybe. Find it out for the next day. Or someone knows in the chat.
If you know, just drop it in, because we need to know that. 2 in conference. Is that Nando says 2 in conference?
No, the question is how many in Europa League? That is the question.
3?
Because if it's 2 in Europa League, that means the 6th and the FA Cup winner will go to Europa League.
It
Who's
just says here
left
that
in
6th
Europa League?
place. It says 6th place qualifies for the Europa League, and the FA Cup winner also goes to the Europa League. It doesn't say any other position, so I think it's only 6th. And then it says
the 7th.
Yeah, for Conference League, the League Cup winners, they earn a spot in the Conference League. if the EFL Cup winner has already qualified for a high European competition, this spot passes to the next highest placed Premier League team not already qualified.
There you go. So next
So
down.
basically, 7th is Conference League. That's what we're saying.
Yeah.
No, so would it be
If-
6
No,
and 7 is
it'll
Europa
be-
League? 8.
I think
8
8 and 9. 8 and
Yeah, 8
9,
and 9.
potentially.
No, what about 7th? Because who
Yeah, so
left in the FA Cup?
Because
No,
5.
so 6 and 7 will you get Europa League, probably, won't they?
No. 6 and FA Cup winner.
6th and FA Cup winner, it says.
Unless
You go
Man
to
City
Europa
win.
League.
Oh, wait, so what was... Oh, yeah, 6 was Spurs. What? So only
And the
Spurs
same
and
logic
United
is
got
with
into
the-
Europa League this season. Is
Yeah,
that what it
the
was?
same logic is with the FA Cup. It says if the winner of the FA
Right.
Cup is already in that position, then it goes down to the lower
So who's in
position.
that? So Villa, but Villa,
Crystal Palace.
Villa might be in the kind of top 6
Yeah,
or
Villa
top
could
7.
throw
Yeah.
that, can't they?
Forest already
Yeah.
there. Man City are already
Man
there.
City.
So it's Crystal Palace is the other semi-final, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's if Crystal Palace win it, then that they'll get it, but otherwise it'll go back into the league. So it could be 8 or 9th in conference.
If Villa win the FA Cup and finish sort of 6th place, it would then drop a position in the
7th.
league down as well. So then it
Yeah.
might go to 7th, and then 8th and 9th get Conference League.
Correct.
Jesus.
So Chelsea,
We know
probably
that
could be looking for that.
Unless Chelsea lose
You're
to
getting
Fulham.
it.
Okay, hold on. Unless Chelsea lose to Fulham this weekend. Now Fulham are 3 points only behind Chelsea. Now Chelsea are in danger to finish in 8th or 9th.
Okay,
it
what
home or away?
happens then if Chelsea finish like 8th? Villa win the FA Cup, Chelsea finish 8th, Chelsea win the Conference League, get Europa League football.
You get Europa League.
So who then takes our Conference League place? The team below,
9th.
like, 9th, yeah, like 9th. Well, it could be
That's
like Italy
mad.
last season. Didn't they put like 8 or 9 teams in?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good. It is good because it kind of makes like throughout the whole league, it's like obviously you get
Do you,
advantages and disadvantages, but like the top teams that you're playing against in the top half are obviously in Europe the same week that like maybe the other teams are. So like if it's a Liverpool against a Villa or a Liverpool against I don't know a Brighton or something, they've played Europe as well.
but one of the things that I actually think with how weak Europa League is with Man United and Spurs, which is a good segue to that, I actually think playing Europa League for Chelsea doesn't serve them as much. You still have to travel to places that you don't want to go to.
I'd rather
Like-
play in the Europa League than the Conference
Yeah,
League.
The
it's more
Conference League of-
prestigious though.
Everyone would love to play in Europa League than Conference League, but at the same time, that was not the ambition. With 5 teams going into the Champions League, Chelsea should be making Champions League football. The difference in the money between Champions League and Europa League is massive, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
What will help Chelsea is Club World Cup, yes, but I still think that it's a massive failure if you don't make Champions League this season after you were second. There is a difference between what Pochettino did, which is what Jamie touched on. He started slow, he was 12th, and then he was only 4 points or 3 points behind the 5th team or the 4th team that went to Champions League. To be second and just drop that much to be like at the end to be 6th or 7th, I think it's a massive failure, to be honest. I think it's a massive, massive failure, to be honest. And there should be consequences. All I'm going to say that Maresca, with all due respect, Maresca's not Ancelotti or Pep Guardiola to get like,
He doesn't have
You
the
know,
money in the bank.
Yeah.
he's not.
While
he's
I-
not these guys to have like, like the credit in the bank. Yeah,
Credit in the
zero
bank,
credit
yeah.
back in this Chelsea team.
Mo,
Like-
while I agree with you, and I'm saying the same thing. For me, it's just progression and nothing else. If he doesn't progress, I agree with that. But just to play devil's advocate, are you then saying they should sack their 4th manager in the
Yes.
space of like 2-3 years? That is
So
also a
I
bit
think-
insane, though.
Ash, I think in response to that, right, this is where the noise from Chelsea fans is the loudest at the moment, is that the Chelsea fans, as much as they think Maresca isn't doing a good enough job, they view it that if we sack him, the cycle repeats again, that they've proven now after 4 appointments, they've got it wrong every single time. The biggest noise at the moment is towards the sporting directors to be removed first, because clearly
Fair.
the sporting project is failing. I think there's a little bit of noise towards the directors to sort of, not the directors above that, to sort of shift. And there's rumours today that questions are starting to be asked from like the real top guys. Like, is it going in the right direction with Egbali at the helm? Apparently, Bowley's like incredibly unhappy. I think they get unhappy when questions start to be asked from exterior, like people that have got sort of control over the finances. So yeah, there's sort of a real push for the sporting directors to be removed first, so that a mistake doesn't happen in terms of rehiring another manager to go along the same process
Doesn't
again.
work in a
Because,
project.
yeah.
Yeah.
Stoppage time is saying, I think, big up my man for the super chat. I think the teams that won the FA Cup and the FA Cup will go to the qualifiers, not directly. I think Ashraf figured it out. It depends who wins what.
I mean,
my
we
man.
played Conference League qualifiers this season through the league, or I don't know. I presume through the league, but maybe it was through the League Cup semi-final, the final.
The
I'm not
final,
sure.
maybe.
But we did, obviously. We lost to Servette in the second leg.
Where did you finish? Did you finish 5th or 6th last season?
Well, we finished. Okay, so this might help actually. We finished 6th, but Manchester United won the FA Cup, which knocked us into the Conference League through where we finished in the league. But yeah.
So if you finish 7th this season and Crystal Palace win, it's the same conversation. You go to Conference League.
Yeah, but potentially.
He's
If
contemplating.
they finish ahead of you.
And he's like, what? Conference League again? Liga Warsaw again? All these teams again?
Do you know one thing I wanted to ask you guys as a panel, because this is another thing. Maresca's come out and said that I remind all Chelsea fans that Chelsea haven't been in the Europe, like Champions League places in the league for 3 seasons now. So he's sort of suggesting, what do you expect me to do? This team has shown time and time again before me that it actually isn't good enough to be Champions League. And that's kind of the narrative he's taking to defend himself. He's basically suggesting that why should I get Champions League football when this team hasn't done it for 2 seasons before me?
Isn't it?
But then you have to look at
flip. It's the first time they flip. Champions League in the beginning of the season, no Champions League. Then they came out and said, no, Champions League is the target. Now he's saying why Champions League is not the target.
Yeah.
It's the first time.
And you have to look into the context of things. I agree. If he went from 6th to 5th, for example, or even stayed 6th, but the improvements you mentioned, Dan, were clearly there to see, I'd say, you know what, that's enough because he's still progressing. Give him time, let him get players, let him get this. But you have to look into the context of what happened this season. 3 of the teams that finished above you, right, are not as good as they were last season, at least in the league, especially Spurs and City. It was a good opportunity for you to try and solidify a position.
Why Forest progressed? Why Newcastle progressed and Chelsea didn't progress?
Forest.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the question, like if the same teams progressed over City, Chelsea, the same teams that finished above you last season, you would say you progressed, they progressed. But now completely new teams are progressing ahead of you, and you're not. You're just going backwards, basically.
Especially when you consider the squad is better, which a lot of Chelsea fans said, and I agree. It is a better squad than last season. I understand Sancho and all these guys have not lit the place apart alight, but the point is they're still better than the players you had. I think we had this debate last week when we said, would you rather have Sancho and Neto or Mudryk and Sterling? Because those were the options last year. You cannot convince me that these guys.
I think Sterling scored 7 league goals last season. I mean, Madueke's got those numbers this season, but they're incredibly sort of weird numbers to look at when you could dive in a little bit deeper. So yeah, Raheem Sterling actually has outperformed every Chelsea winger we've had since he's been at the club pretty much.
Why is he, Gal? What are you talking about? Managers is making excuses and is doing everything to make fun of Arsenal. Who's doing anything to make fun of Arsenal?
No, he's saying is doing everything you make fun of Arsenal about. So the things that Arsenal get criticized for, Chelsea are doing it, or Chelsea's manager is doing it, and they're getting away with it. I don't think they're getting away with it.
I don't know if he's getting away with it, Agal. I think when a manager speaks in that fashion, I think the English press and English football fans don't view that as acceptable. I think it just isn't in the culture of the game. I feel like it's all about winning. And a lot of the clubs and a lot of the fans ultimately want to win because 1, they're sort of looking over their shoulders at rivals. And 2, that's why you fall in love with football, because of what the sensation of winning feels like to you as an emotion. So I think that's why when a manager sort of speaks away from winning being the main priority, they're sort of looked at with a bit of scrutiny, to be honest with you. So I don't think he's getting away with it at all, Maresca. He definitely isn't.
Do we think? Just the last thing. Do we think he can ever be the Arteta guy for Chelsea?
Maybe.
If he wins an FA Cup, he'd be on the same level.
He cannot win an FA Cup this season.
The issue with Maresca, right, is that I think he ultimately is showing that there's clear regression in his team. Like Rory said a few weeks ago, he hit the nail on the head, and I keep thinking about it. The longer this team of young players has been under the influence of Maresca, the worse it's looked. And I think that is so true because the longer that team was under Pochettino, the better it started to look. And I'm not saying Poch should have stayed, and I know people get caught up on that. but Pochettino was showing that team was eventually moving in the right direction after a lot of mistakes. Maresca's made a lot of mistakes, but has shown no real evidence of learning or willingness to adapt. He's doubling down on the stubbornness, saying, I'm not going to change the way I play. And we know how that looks because Ange is the biggest example of that. He doubled down on the stubbornness, and his team are currently probably looking at finishing 17th from 5th.
Yeah. And to be fair to Arteta, when he started, because Arteta always made it clear about the style he wants to play and stuff, but he didn't do that this first half season. If you guys remember, when he took over in December 2019, he didn't play the style that we thought he's going to play. He played 3 at the back. He played with wing backs just because he knew that team cannot play that kind of football. And it took him a year and a half when he got some players in to switch to a proper 4-3-3 where he started having wingers making runs in and all that stuff when he finally settled on a team. So I would at least argue that Arteta's start, the way he took a team that obviously wasn't good enough to last for the next 3, 4, 5 years, he played pragmatic with them until he started getting his own players. And from that next season, I know we finished 8th again, but you could start seeing that he was trying to make changes and saying, okay, this is the way I want to play football from now onwards. Even if it doesn't get us results, even if we miss out on top 4 the season after, which we did, and we bottled it to Spurs, he's still stuck on the playing style. And he still said, okay, these are the kind of profile of players I need to get. And he got rid of players that don't work with the system, that had that kind of attitude problem and didn't want to be disciplined with certain training regimens and stuff like that. So I would at least argue that Arteta seemed to have a clear plan when he first started. Obviously, it has to lead to something eventually, but Maresca, I think... But I also don't think it's fair to say that Maresca isn't a good manager yet. I think we still have to wait and see. I do still live with the progression thing, but that doesn't mean he's
I think a lot of the fans that are Maresca they're finding belief in what we saw at the beginning of the season. But I think we have to remember that was now such a small amount of time in comparison to where we've seen Chelsea be. I mean, we're talking about from August to December in comparison to the majority of December up to April now. We're seeing a longer period of time of Chelsea being 14th in the form guide rather than seeing Chelsea top 4 in the form guide. We've completely regressed under him, and I think people are sort of finding false hope that sort of football returns. But we all know how difficult that is for a manager to turn it around. It's no matter where you are.
And Dan, to add to that as well, you could be right. And look, this might not necessarily make sense, but you could also make the argument that maybe the first couple of months, yes, you can give him some credit, but there's also a chance that he was continuing where Poch left off last season. Because you mentioned it yourself, the end of last season wasn't bad. Your last 15 games, you only lost 1 game. In fact, your last 5 or 6 games, I think you won every single one of them. So not to mention you reached an FA Cup semi-final that I think you should have won against City if Jackson was a bit more clinical. You reached a League Cup final. So you didn't end.
And they should have won against Liverpool if Gallagher just didn't shit his better.
Exactly. So you actually ended the season really well. So is there an argument to say that maybe he just continued where Poch left off and the team continued on that same high?
Yeah, I think there is. And I think actually what happened was there was a sort of weird blend. I think we're seeing this now, that he tried to move this team away from Pochettino's style and it had old habits. And what he sort of found was a team that were willing to sort of control the game in periods of time. But when they need to open up and be quick and extravagant on the transition, they were able to do that as well. And I think Maresca found a blend that was working and continued to move away from that by sort of imprinting his philosophy more and more to remove the habits from Pochettino. And I think he found this blend where ultimately he actually found his answer way sooner than his system ever sort of fell into place, really. I think that is something that we're seeing now.
Listen, for me, I'm looking at this Chelsea project and I'm saying it has to be a change now. I don't know what the change is about recruitment or a change of players, but this can't continue next season. Chelsea cannot be again without Champions League football. Big up everybody that joins us on the Football Terrace. Hit that like button, people. Let's get to 200, 300 likes. So big up Terry and all the Football Terrace community. Great show there with Straight Facts with Don, Lawless, and Staffy. Hit that like button, people. About Man United and Spurs, I got 2 questions to be. Does Man United win yesterday show resilience? And does the Spurs win against Frankfurt show that he has defensive solidity a little bit, Ange Postecoglou? Because winning 1-0 for 90 minutes, not conceding, and not conceding a lot of chances. Shows that Ange Postecoglou can coach the team to actually defend and be clinical up top, or just win games like this. Does that change your mind a little bit about both teams at all, or nothing? Man United still came back because they were lucky, or
I think a performance like that where you go 2-0 up and then concede 4 without response you should obviously answer questions, but then to show resilience to come back, I don't think it's lucky. Like, you still have to have a bit of resilience about you to do that and to like pick yourselves up and go again. I think United did do that in the end, but yeah, I think it's kind of like summary of their season in terms of like you just don't know what way it's going to go. And I think on the other side with Spurs, I think Spurs fans are going to be in a tricky position if like if they need to get to the final now, but if they get to the final and Postecoglou goes on and wins them like a trophy, gets that monkey off their back, and then gets Champions League off the back of that. Like, so many Spurs fans are fed up with him and they don't want him to be there now. And if he goes and wins the trophy and gets them Champions League, like, even though what if they lost like 17 games or something so far this season, like, I would still look at that and I would just be like, that's a good season for Spurs. You know what I mean? Like a trophy and Champions League.
And 17th.
Does it? No, 17 losses. But if I would,
no. They can be 17th in the league.
No, they can finish 17th.
Yeah.
It's actually a very plausible situation. They finish 17th.
If you said the Spurs fans at the start of the season that you would win a trophy, a European trophy, get Champions League, but you'd finish 17th, do you think they'd take it?
No.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they would. 100%.
But Arsenal win the Champions League, not.
Yeah,
no.
You're
Who cares about Arsenal winning the Champions League now?
They do somehow. I don't know why they do though. But
like, for me, Spurs would take, bro. European competition and Champions League next season.
Have they not finished around 17th before? I think they have.
Not when I started watching the Premier League.
No,
not since I started watching the Premier League. I can look it up. Oh my God. But no, bro, they would take it 100%. Spurs. The Spurs fans in the chat can tell you, would take it at European trophy, Champions League next season. But the 100%. Question isn't that. The question is this manager now good enough to lead the team next season in the Champions League or in the league again? The answer is no, because this Europa League is weak. There is no team that drops from the Champions League. It's a weak competition.
It's definitely worse for that. I know we touched on it, Mo, very briefly, like post-show last week, but the Europa League's definitely worse for not having Champions League teams dropping in, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
The level automatically would drop because you don't have
so many more eyes on it with bigger teams in the penultimate. You know, if you've got like the Sevilles or, you know, back in the day when those sort of teams were dropping in, Chelsea, Arsenal, it just puts way more eyes on the competition. And, you know, they're lucky that Manchester United and Spurs are in there. Otherwise, no one would be talking about it, especially in England.
Yeah, 100%.
And now they've got Bodo Glimt, who you'd probably think that they should be able to beat. Look,
a competition that you're playing Bodo Glimt in the semi-final just tells you a lot. Can we just establish this?
You're playing on AstroTurf in the semi-final of Europa League.
By the way, I checked it. The last time they finished below 15th was 97-98 season. So it's just mad.
Actually,
so that's Prem.
Since I started actually watching
Christian Gross.
No. They finished 14th in 03-04, 11th. Yeah. But that's it, Dan. It has always been Dan, you know what, Dan? It's always top 8 since 09. Always since 08. Always top 8.
I'm not sure Spurs. I know they won the trophy, but like if they were to finish 7th, 16th, 17th, that's such a big drop off. They'd go, something was wrong though. Like, what? I just think it's such a big drop off.
I agree, but
but they do want a trophy. They do want
a so little, bro. In Spurs.
Trophy is huge for Spurs.
Is there any Spurs fans in the chat to just tell us what they take? Because
think about Newcastle.
But they have to take. Yeah, I agree with Jamie. They have to take Europa League and Champions League.
Think about Newcastle, right? For example, Newcastle. I know it's obviously different, but after winning the Carabao Cup, and even then leading up to it, they were gathering a little bit of momentum. They win the Carabao Cup, and I think they could realistically potentially catch Arsenal and finish second in the Premier League.
They could definitely finish second, couldn't
they? Do you know what I mean? Like the way they're playing at the minute, and Arsenal's all eyes for Arsenal is on the Champions League, so they won't be. I think even in the last few games we've seen Arsenal against Everton and Brentford, they haven't pushed on when probably they would have if they were going for a league. They just kind of said, let's take it a little bit easy, no big injuries. Like Saka, I think he came off. I think Arteta was making substitutions before the goal against Brentford, then they scored and then he took them off. So yeah, I think they it's like surviving the Premier League, win the Europa League, and get Champions League.
Surviving the Premier League.
That is what they're doing. By the way, sorry, my facts were wrong. I just confirmed it. The last time they finished below 15 was 76-77. They finished 18th that season under Keith Birkinshaw. Don't even know who that is, but yeah, so this will be crazy. No, by the way, I don't think the only reason I don't think Newcastle will finish above us is because they also have some tricky games. They have to play away against Villa this weekend. They play away at the Emirates also later. But, bro, honestly, I agree with Jamie. They have to take Europa League and qualify into the Champions League automatically. Okay. The funny thing is...
No, forget you have to take. The question is, guys, should Ange be sacked?
No, of course not. No, guys. Guys,
if Ange wins the trophy, yes, they have to sack him. They have. I think
it would be like a Ten Hag situation, like this year. Yeah, like they would, like they'd keep him, and then they'd be like, yeah, well, you won a trophy, it's a big deal, and then the season would start 10 games in. They'd be absolutely horrific. The likelihood is they'd probably get knocked out of Champions League, can't even get into the Europa League because of it anymore. And then it would just be a terrible cycle. I think they probably will be right to sack him. I just think as well, keeping fans on side is so important in a football club. Wow. And he's like, they're at war. Like, do you know what I mean? They're shouting at each other during matches, like screaming at one another, giving out to one. Like, was he shushing them a few weeks ago?
Yeah,
Jamie,
I the only thing goes because imagine they get Champions League football. He's shown how inept he is at managing league football, and league football is how you qualify in the Champions League first time round. Like for the
I can just imagine the last day they win the Europa League, they lift the trophy. The next day, the headlines is that Spurs Parkway, Parkways with Ange Postecoglou after winning the first European trophy since the 80s.
That's too much success for Levy.
They learned from their lessons because they were sacking managers before the finals, so they gave him a chance. I genuinely think that they would be fair to do so, and I would actually rate Daniel Levy for doing it if he was to win and then remove him, because I think what Jamie said, if they were to look at Manchester United as an example, it could definitely hinder you keeping a manager around who just is obviously unsettled.
What if he sacks him before the final and gets a manager like Tuchel, for example, for one game to play the final, pay him a lot of money?
I could
imagine he brings Jose back and he's like,
I could see him sacking Postecoglou before the final, getting back in Ryan Mason for a game because he doesn't want to win it. He's like, fuck that.
If he sacks him before the final, right? If they actually get there, then there's genuinely.
I think there'll be a riot.
There's something either that Daniel Levy doesn't want Spurs to win a trophy, or there's something written in the contracts in terms of finances that he's just not happy with if a manager wins the trophy.
There's a good comment there. It's a colour thing. Ange should win it and then quit. He should win the Europa League, get the Champions League, and just say, you know what, this club is toxic, I'm gone.
But financially, it's just not worth his time quitting a job. It's not worth any.
He should do a Conte then. He should do a Conte, go in the press conference, talk shit about them, make sure that, okay, they're so pissed off that they sack him. But I actually want to ask you guys this. You guys are saying they should sack him. But what do you guys think the club will do if they win the Europa League?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they'll sack him. I'd say there's stuff going on behind the scenes. Yeah, I think they'll sack him. Behind the scenes with Daniel Levy. And because he just Postecoglou doesn't seem happy. I think he's there because he feels there's a chance to win a trophy.
Well, he aged like 20 years in these 2 years. Spurs, bro.
I think all managers are like that, are they?
He's lost so much weight as well. I was looking at him like he's like lost all this weight here on his chin, and his chin's like nearly getting caught in his zip, and
he's not eating. Ange Postecoglou, bro. He's depressed.
Not to have that amount of pressure on you, is it? I don't think.
Fighting with the fans every game, like going back and forth with the people in the stadium.
Amorim as well. He looks like he's at their age in 20 years. United.
You know what? If Manchester United get to the final and lose to Spurs in the final, should they sack Amorim?
Yeah, bro, 100%.
Very good. It's a very before we answer this question, that's a very good question. It's a very good question. It's a very plausible situation. AMT here is saying, to me, Lyon shot themselves in the foot, leading 2-0 with 10 men and still lost it 10 minutes later. I actually will give credit to Man United because the goal that Maino scored, I really wanted Staffy here to talk about Maino. He just couldn't make it. Because I love Kobe Maino. Why are you laughing for?
Do you love him as a number 9?
No, because I read a comment that says Ange Ozempakoglu. Dan said he lost weight.
He did. Like I was looking at his
Ozempakoglu. That
pictures of
is
him.
hilarious.
It's like very close to catching the skin. So.
All of the finals can have Spain and an English club, same as Euro's final, a rematch of the Euro 2024. No, because Inter will reach the final.
Yeah, it would be
just,
London. It could be
think you will.
London in every competition.
Can you have
right?
some shame?
Wallahi, I don't
Ashraf?
think you will. I'm saying what I actually believe. I actually think even against Bayern, you guys were slightly fortunate. When I say fortunate, I don't mean like when I say fortunate,
Okay.
not like
We'll
it was
talk about
bad
the
refereeing or
Champions League
something.
in a bit. There is a segment on the show to talk about the Champions League and Arsenal and Inter and PSG. There is a segment.
Wallah, yeah.
Like this is not
Yeah,
the
but to
Tuesday show.
answer-
It's for Khalas,
to answer
I'm
your
gonna.
question-
I told you I'm
No.
going back.
Yeah, Habibi, to answer the Madrid United
No,
question.
no, not yet. They sacked
Oh.
Di Matteo after Chelsea won the Champions League, but Di Matteo was an interim coach. It's
No,
different.
no, they didn't. They
He
sacked him
got
the
the-
next season
They
when
got
he
the next season.
yeah, when
he
they didn't make
sacked-
it past the group stage of the Champions
I
League.
think it was against West Brom later
Did he
on.
not? He
Yeah,
got kept on. He was an interim, then he got kept on because he won the Champions League. And then he
yeah.
got
We
sacked.
Exactly.
we went out of the Champions League group stage into the Europa League, and then I think that's when Benitez got the job, and then Benitez went on to win the
Correct.
Europa League in 2013.
And you won the 20 Europa League 20.
Do you know what? That's one of the worst seasons of my life, and this is worse
Oh,
by so much.
No, I think the Graham Potter. For me, the Graham Potter was season when he finished.
You know
10th
what?
was
I
like,
feel
what
so
the
bad
fuck
now.
was
I look
this,
back at some of my
bro?
videos slating Potter, and I was like, "This it can't get any worse than this." Oh, it could. It could. This is worse. And we're better off in the league, but this is worse.
The devil
I
you
am
know is
telling
better
you
than the
what.
devil you don't.
I'm telling you what, if this manager watch our YouTube channels, I think I can be taken to court sometime for the stuff that I've said. These managers, these players, I'm like, I can be taken to court, to be honest. So Amorim thing. Did he get sacked though if he loses Europa League? Can I just say
I
my
think
opinion about this?
yeah, go ahead. You say it.
Am I allowed? Sorry,
Yeah,
Ashraf,
yeah, Habibi, Allah.
apologize. I actually think everyone writing them off, him reaching the Europa League final is an achievement for him.
Why?
Everyone
Yeah,
said that he's gonna go out every single time. Did he play Sociedad? You're gonna get out. He won against Lyon. He won. If he wins the next game against who are they gonna play? Betis.
Bilbao.
Bilbao.
Wow.
They
Okay.
already saying that he's gonna go out. If he manages to reach the final and lose it in a good manner, what I mean, a 1-0 penalty, something like this, and have a good game, I don't think they should get sacked. It's the same situation for Arsenal. I have the same energy for all the clubs.
No.
Because why no?
Because they're after bringing him in. They're saying we have this idea of what way we want you to work. We feel like you're the manager that can take us on that journey of getting us to say. People obviously throw digs about Arsenal not winning a major trophy, and I understand that. But at the same time, you can't deny that right now they're probably one of, if not the best, like one of the best clubs being run in the country. And I think with Amorim and United, he's coming into such a tricky position where a lot of the players he had to deal with, like say the Garnacho situation, the Rashford situation when he came in, and even if he gets to the Europa League and he doesn't win it, yeah, fair enough. I understand that from a frustration point of view, but he's only brought in Dorgu as his only signing. It's not his team. Like, if there was the point to bring in a manager halfway through the season when he said he didn't want to come in until the end of the season anyway, and he comes in because he does use a favor to help use out because of the situation yous are in, have put yourselves in, because you gave a manager that you didn't want after 10 games 250 million to spend the summer, and you know what? Yeah, you're not doing well enough with these players. You're gone. So let's sack you now because you didn't get enough out of players that we spent all this money on. Doesn't make any sense. They need to go out and back him and see where he lands in a year or 2 years.
But Jamie, doesn't that go back to the Arteta conversation then? And I swear I'm not trying to bring it about Arsenal, but when Arteta came in, it was
Main
not his
character
players.
syndrome. It's
The
unbelievable.
main character syndrome. It's all about me. It was not his team, and he still made improvements. This is why I keep talking about progression. Don't you think if Amorim came in this season, I 100% agree there should not be expectations of him to win anything, not even the Europa League.
Yeah,
But don't you think
100%.
that there should have at least been progress and some improvement? Because I generally don't see the difference between this football and Eric Ten Hag's football at the start of the season. I generally see nothing.
I think it's worse. I think the football is worse now than
Yeah.
it was under Ten Hag. But I think with that, you have to take it into context. He's completely changed formation. he has had injuries to say, like some of the players that he might have played in that position. Martinez has obviously took a big injury. Hoyland, they don't have a striker. They don't have someone that will actually score goals. Like Hoyland does not score goals. Zirkzee, I think, needs runners around him. Garnacho is a bit in and out of form, shoots in probably the wrong positions. They solely rely on Bruno Fernandes. And before, they probably had a better team at Rashford when he was playing a little bit better. So I understand the progression side of things, but should we be seeing progression from a manager after what, like 6 months of
Half a
football?
season.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't think
absolutely.
it's realistic, and I think it's more. And we talked about this last day. The expectation on Manchester United every single time they go out is the exact same as it was 20 years ago because
Not
of the
really,
size of
not
the.
fun.
It is
Not
because
really.
from their fans, because
Disagree
of the
with
size
you.
of the football club, they're
Yeah,
expecting
that's
to go
why
out
I
and win.
called him entitled, Jamie.
Yeah, but
I say
you
that
can
Man
say
United
that.
fans are the most entitled fan base in the world.
Yeah,
They do have a
his
right.
point still
100%.
stands, right?
Yeah,
His
so they're
point still
entitled.
stands
They're
then.
entitled to win because of the success they had previously. But that also puts pressure on them as a football club. And every time
Yeah,
they go out, I feel like those players right now have the weight of that on their shoulders, and they struggle with it. And I think Amorim, yeah, he hasn't probably improved the squad in the way that he would like, and I think that does weigh on him. I think he looks and he's like, "What am I doing wrong that I'm not getting enough out of these players?" But I think get to the summer, like he'll obviously get a little bit of a break. Hopefully, from their point of view, they want to go on and win the Europa League now after that victory. But I think he needs to get his own players in, and I think this summer will be big for them if they can obviously financially support them. But like some of the players that they have there that they still want out, like Hoyland's probably going to go. Casemiro probably needs to leave. I know he had a good performance yesterday, but like just his wages and his age, I think there's a lot of dead wood there, and it feels like we have the same conversation with United every few years. Like, oh, there's a lot of dead wood. They need to change the squad.
Because they've done such a bad job at moving on players from past
it
managerial
is.
appointments.
But
It didn't work out.
yeah, I think give them time. Even depend on like if they had said at the start of the season when he first came in, like you need to win the Europa League. That's the expectation. Then fair enough. But I think they were so poor that even the league probably. I think he came in. They were sixth. The league was reflecting.
They were 4
probably
points off the top 4 when he come in. Apparently,
yeah. They were like the league was probably
crazy.
reflecting a little bit better than what they were actually doing, and now we're kind of seeing a little bit more. But if Ten Hag had stayed, like they would probably still probably would have been the same. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think they would have been this low, but I don't think
they wouldn't been this
chance
low
of winning Europa League.
Yeah. Although to be fair to him, he does end up winning cups somehow.
True. I was going to say that if they win Europa League, they've won a trophy every season for the last 3 years, so they almost have a right to demand winning trophies. I don't see the issue with fans being entitled if their club's been winning and they have those standards because they believe their club should be winning every year, and the money at these clubs is being spent to suggest that they're building teams good enough to win. So what's the issue? I don't have an issue with fan entitlement, to be honest with you. Really.
I think if they're trying to get back,
I have no issue. Anyone can be as entitled as they want.
Why is there an issue of them being entitled then? Why does it get sort of
because
out?
Because it gets them depressed. Let me tell you what I mean by this. You gotta realize where you are
right now. Then
you gotta realize where you are. For example, I'm just gonna tell you, we have had this issue at Inter for a while. We didn't make Champions League, I think, for 6 or 7 years. Every year we go through the season, it's not only that we say that we're gonna make Champions League, we say we're gonna win the league every year. But the difference between us and the rest of, for some of these seasons, we started the season and we were top by December, and then we fall off to finish 7th, for example, or 6th, and then we start the next season. But there are some seasons where we knew we recruited wrong. We knew that our players are not good enough. The managers is not good enough. For example, we went on a season with a manager that none of you heard of. He's called Stramaccioni, for example. He was managing the youth, won some games. They decided to hire him as the manager of the club. And then we sacked him after. The problem was that you're setting yourself up for failure. You're setting yourself up for a depression. Oh, I need to win the league next season. Some Man United fans said that this season Man United will be challenging for the league under Ten Hag because they changed the ownership, for example. You can call that standard. I call it delusion because you haven't watched Man United the season before. That was a delusion. And then, let me give you an example. Saeed TV. Saeed does a rant after a rant after a rant, meet at the car park, fight someone at the car park, and a rant. Surely after your 4th rant, it's not a rant anymore because you've seen it like 50 times. You've seen Staffy always says that. You have seen the same movie 5 times. You know the monster's coming out of this closet. That is the scene. Yeah, you still get scared and you jump under the pillow. What are you doing? You've seen it before. You know what? It's coming your way. You should lower your expectations a little bit. for example, still some Man United fans, I'm not saying all Man United fans, they are still think that they are more attractive than other clubs. Some. Like, and I'm saying other clubs like Arsenal, for example. Based on what? Like, how are you saying that? Because you won trophies?
Money.
But they don't even pay the high wage. No, they don't pay even these high wages. By the way, paying high wages doesn't mean you're attractive, by the way.
No,
Because
it's
now,
not. I think they can't compete with them though, because and like I know you're saying not all the players now are on the big wages, but like Casemiro's on 350 grand a week, Bruno's on 350 grand a week. De Gea, when he was there, he got offered a big contract. Sanchez, United, and I think they are going to move away from that now. I think their model is starting to change with like the signings of Euro, Dorgu. I don't think they're giving out those big contracts anymore, especially with trying to comply with FFP. But I think it does come back to that air of the club, the size of the club, that they feel that they can compete with those players. And I think before it was a case of they actually couldn't say that we're going to be in contention with the Premier League and the Champions League, so they had to offer that kind of money. Whereas now, I feel like even if they offered someone that, I think they'd be like, you know what, it's probably not even worth it, because I'm probably going to damage my career in terms of going there and maybe not getting the most out of myself. So there is a sense of entitlement. But the one thing I would say about United fans is you're never too big to fail. I think that's one thing that United fans seem to think, that just because they're so big that like they'll eventually come back. But like that doesn't always happen. Like even if you take it out of football, like some of the biggest civilizations of the world gone over that have failed, and it's not that it can happen.
can I tell you a
It's
fact?
complacency, Jamie, isn't it? It
Can I-
creeps in. It can be a danger to anyone.
Can I tell you guys
Yeah.
a fact? Something. Man United are the only team of the top 6, including Spurs, if you want to call Spurs a top 6, that their name has not been close to challenging for the 2 biggest competitions in Europe for the last 12 years.
Yeah.
Even Spurs reached the Champions League final. Even Spurs and Arsenal, in their worst time, you want to say, or like Arsenal, they challenged Leicester for the league, right? Arsenal now are challenging for the league. That by itself, people don't realize how bad this is. You changed numerous managers. Yes, you won Europa League, you won FA Cups, but I judge big teams not based on Europa League and with all due respect and winning the cups. I judge them based on how close is your name to the title of the Champions League and the Premier League, your league and the Champions League. The only team in the top 6 that hasn't, bro, their name is not even close. By the way, when they finished second, they were not in contention to win the league. Let's just establish this. They weren't in contention. Everyone knew that Man United will not win the league and they will finish second. That is not contending. That is what I mean. The standard has to be a little bit lower. But I want to take it back to a point that you guys, I actually disagree with you about Amorim. I think Amorim's style is better than Ten Hag. The football is better. My evidence of this is how he set up the team against his big team. He set up the team very well. He doesn't have the players, yes. But also, Jamie, in the same time, as Manchester United, you need some results. You cannot be 15th in the league or 14th.
I agree.
That is unacceptable.
He's
No
not.
matter
He's not.
how
Not
good he is.
Arsenal.
No, but I
not
disagree
Arsenal
about
in
the
FA
big
Cup.
teams.
He beat in City away at the Etihad. He beat. Did he beat
Yeah, but
Chelsea at home
guys,
as well?
he
Pretty
had. But Eric Ten
No,
Hag had that
draw.
as well. Every time we
draw.
came up against
No,
Eric
actually,
Ten
that's
Hag with
Ten Hag.
United. Yeah, when we came up against United, Eric Ten Hag, he
Eric
always
Ten
gave us
Hag
a
lost
difficult game.
7 to Liverpool. That by
He
itself
beat,
is.
yes, I understand, but that's an anomaly.
Oh,
He
got
also
it.
beat Liverpool. He also beat Liverpool that
He lost-
season 2-1.
He lost 6
beat
to Man
City.
City.
He
He
beat
lost 6 to
City,
Man City.
and he also beat them last season in the FA Cup final. These results
Yeah.
happen. Like I get what you're trying to say, but the reality is he also made it difficult for some big teams. This is the same guy who also beat La Liga winners Barcelona. The season they won La Liga, he beat them and knocked them out of the Europa League. I think they
Ten
won
Hag was
4.
horrific. You're not going to convince me that Ten Hag is better than Amorim yet.
He wasn't good. Of course, he's not good. I'm just saying there hasn't been an improvement, in my opinion, because the reality is they've even lost more games.
There
I
is
think
a
if you
little
look at-
bit of improvement. The results have not come
Maybe.
through, and that is due to Jamie's point of style is completely different. Some of these guys have never played this style of play. Coming from a fan of a team that has played 3-5-2 for a while, right? It takes an elite coach like what is more?
But there are teams that have done. Conte, when he took over Chelsea, when they
Allah,
were,
I was just about to say Conte.
Okay,
It
go
takes
ahead.
an elite manager like Conte to suddenly take a team from playing 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 to play 3-5-2. It takes them like 5-6 games. Chelsea experienced this.
But Arteta isn't
inter-experiences.
elite. Arteta did it. Arteta switched to back three.
Bro,
He
you
did a
finished
3-4-3.
great, bro. You weren't great.
But we won the FA
what
Cup.
I
We
mean.
did look better. We beat City. We beat
And
Chelsea.
they
We beat
look
Liverpool.
better, but the
we beat
results are not
United.
coming their way.
That
Yeah,
season
but
they did
better.
come.
I
That
think
season they
that
did come.
at the end of that, like realistically, at the end of it, they're still the same players. Like if you're hosting a party and then you have a shit group of mates, and then next week someone else is hosting the party, you've changed who's hosting the party, but there's still a shit bunch of mates where they're not gonna be any fun. Like that's what United situation
But
is.
Jamie,
in. Like,
what counters that? Initially, when people were saying, look at Sancho when he goes back to Dortmund, or look what McTominay plays Napoli, I didn't take that into account because I'm like, okay, it's different leagues.
yeah.
But then Rashford kind of proved it here because he went to Villa and he's been playing a lot better than he played this whole season with United or even last season. So I think so there is an argument to say that the players aren't as bad as people are making them seem. They're not good enough. Yes, they're not good enough, but they're not. They're 15th.
They're not.
Right?
They're not as bad. They're not as bad. You're right. But
exactly.
Now comes the real point about Man United. Before we finish about Man United, the club is in disarray, which is what Jamie was talking about. The mentality, the people that played football, right? I don't know if any of you played football. There is something called mentality before you go into games. Big teams normally they are convinced that they're gonna win the game before the even game is played. Man United had this over Alex Ferguson era. They had this thing. Man United now, the players are not even convinced that they will win games. They are second fiddle. They play like, with all due respect, Manchester United players, I believe that they step on the field as strong mentally as, for example, Crystal Palace. Like we're an okay team. We are an okay team.
Yeah.
Anybody can beat us. Anyone can beat us.
On the situation with the other players, right? Rashford's gone to Aston Villa. McTominay's gone to Napoli. These are teams that do not have the same scrutiny under them. Nowhere near the same amount of scrutiny. Like United have won that game yesterday, and that will be all over our timelines for the next.
I don't know, Jamie, because I think if you play for Napoli, there's so much weight on you to perform. Like there's a lot of pressure
within Napoli. Like United is everywhere. It's everyone. It's
like
people
Betis
of all
have
fan
a
60,000
seat. Not that Betis expect to win, but Betis, they don't like losing. They got a 60,000 seater stadium. There's still pressure on Anthony to do well there as a player. Like
I'm not saying that there's no pressure. What I'm saying is that like. It's with United as well. It's like, and we see this as like just as general fans. Like there's so much. Like what's that saying that they always say? Hated, adored, never ignored. And it is true. They get so much more scrutiny over every single performance. And I don't think it helps in terms of media. You have all of Ferdinand, Neville, Keane every single game, and they all play up to it as well because they know they're all ex-pros and they're like, when I was back in my day, this is how good we were. This is what we did. And then fans like eat that up. Do you know what I mean? They get a lot of views. Exactly. They get views out of it. So I just think the scrutiny, I'm not saying, I think there is pressure. Like going to Napoli is a huge club in Italy and there would be a lot of pressure there. Going to Aston Villa, huge
Napoli is
club.
not a huge club in Italy.
It's a huge club in Naples though, Mo, isn't it? And that
in
that
the south,
pressure.
there is so much pressure. But also, we need to understand, and I said it to Staffy and he didn't believe me. There are managers in the history of the sport. Once they were, which is German chicken wing said that, and isn't that the manager's job? Not at every club. For example, Antonio Conte walked into Spurs, changed the mentality for a little bit when they got top four. Then he said, I can't do this anymore. The rest of the club are working against me. I can't do it. There are managers in the history that can do this. I thought Amorim would be one, but he's a young manager. He's not Antonio Conte. Antonio Conte goes to Chelsea, change the mentality. Goes to Inter, change the mentality. Goes to Napoli, change the mentality. He does this, right? But Amorim couldn't do it because everyone at Manchester United.
How about Di Matteo at Chelsea? Was Di Matteo also elite?
Habibi, what mentality? They defended the whole way until the final. That is like.
What about Benitez at Chelsea? Was that?
Benitez is the big manager.
Any team with Bosinga at centre back deserves Champions League.
The Benitez is a different thing.
I just think we should have seen some sort of like progress or improvement. Again, I literally just mean in terms of some better results because you know how sometimes you get a new manager bounce. Even that was not seen. There was not even a new manager bounce.
Because Van Nistelrooy took the bounce.
Yeah,
he did, though,
yeah, exactly.
He took the bounce for real.
You know what? I think actually, when I looked at Van Nistelrooy in the position of Manchester United manager, I think he understood what it meant to be stood on that touchline more than I think Amorim has done. And I know it was only a very
Fair.
short spell, and I think judging what he's done at Leicester, it probably shown that he wouldn't have been completely up to the level of what Manchester United would expect. But I think he brought back the sense of winning is a must at Manchester United, and sort of fed into that fans' entitlement, if you like. Kind of what like Ollie did. Ollie knew exactly what the fans were wanting because he was part of that 15 years ago before he became the manager. I think Van Nistelrooy stood there on the touchline. I think he had the stature of someone that looked like they could be Manchester United manager. Obviously, we don't know how that ever would have panned out, and he went on to Leicester, and it's gone horribly wrong for him there. But Leicester are also a club that are fighting against their own manager. They didn't back him in January, and he's not got this perfect environment to succeed. I think there's actually a whole wider problem of Premier League teams employing managers and not giving them the best environment to succeed. I think that is there's a number of clubs having that issue. But Amorim's been so underwhelming to me. He's got, I was just looking here, 19 games, 6-1, lost 9, drawn 4, 1.16 points per game. Ten Hag won 3 in 10 games less this season. He also had a 1.22 points per game. So Amorim's done worse than Ten Hag, and he's also got a way bigger sample size this season.
Erik Ten Hag was so bad, I think they will be like now, maybe. All I have to say is that Antonio Conte is now starting the same fuss that he starts in every team at Inter, Chelsea, with Napoli. He said
that makes you a very rich man in football.
He didn't do it at Spurs.
He literally did it everywhere. Everywhere he went.
He turned around
He
at
got
Spurs and
sacked.
was like, no, he turned around at Spurs
he didn't get
and
sacked.
was like, he basically downed tools at Spurs because they weren't willing to listen to what he was demanding as a manager.
Yeah, he had a
He's
very bad.
literally- he's going to do this at Napoli.
He won a Premier League at Chelsea and then left them in 10th after all the players fell out.
Guys, listen to this and tell me that you haven't seen this before. Conte, during the press conference of Napoli before their game in the weekend, during my 8 months spell here at Napoli, I've realized there is a lot that cannot be done here. I've seen this movie before. I've seen the same exact thing before. So Man United, Antonio Conte is going to be available. He's the one that's take your club to glory. Sign Antonio Conte, sack Amorim, and it'll be all right.
But like if they were to bring in him, like they'd have him gone in 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be huge. Like,
1 year
think about
contract.
how bad it is.
1
now.
year contract worth of £20 million. Antonio Conte fixes.
Oh, no, because Conte isn't coming in to fix a club. He's shown, obviously, that isn't where he thrives. Actually, the worst thing United did was probably treat Rangnick in the way that they did and have him try and manage the bigger egos. Because actually, if they'd allowed Rangnick to get to work, maybe it would have taken like 2 seasons of, some really poor stuff and a big clear out. But they might be moving in a better direction now for it. Then they hired Dan Ashworth to kind of switch things up, and then obviously that's not worked. So they're going for like round 3 again under completely new sporting direction as well this time. So it's kind of crazy for Manchester United to be going through that period of time and still being able to put trophy challenges together. I think that shows the stature of the club and the mentality in certain games.
Moving on to the bigger clubs then, the big clubs. But before we go on, guys, we have over 500 people. Can we get, at least, guys, get us to 200 likes? Like the video underneath your live chat in the next 5 minutes. We have over 500 people still here. So hit that like button. Get us to 250 likes, at least half the percentage.
I just quickly checked it before you go on. I'll just finish this. Erik Ten Hag versus Ruben Amorim. Forget the matches and stuff, because obviously Ruben Amorim lost a lot more. So let's leave that aside. Average possession, 52.7% versus 53. Shots per match, 11.7 versus 12.5. And shots on target per match is 4.56 versus 5.2. It's not really that kind of improvement, Mo. That's why I'm telling you it's not the same.
I watch football and I think that it's better. I watch it. And also at the same time, you're ignoring the fact that Erik Ten Hag spent £600 million to build the team to get it there.
No, fair.
Well,
By the way, I think he should have been sacked. He should have been sacked 100%. I'm just saying he hasn't improved. I'm just going back to your point because you said Ruben Amorim has improved the team. I don't think he has. Now, if you're saying no, he needs to be given till the summer, yeah, fair. I hear that.
He has no play.
Amorim needs to be given a summer to then be fully judged, doesn't he? I think if you spoke to Amorim, his biggest regret right now would be taking that job when he did.
Can I ask you something, Ashraf? If Arsenal, after the Real Madrid win, are playing Barcelona and the second leg is at your ground, would you say that Arsenal will go through?
Sorry, repeat that again. If Arsenal were playing?
If Arsenal were playing Barcelona, right? And the second leg is at your home, so you go away first and then they come to your ground, would you say Arsenal going through?
Against Barcelona, I would never say we're favorites. Doesn't matter if the first leg is our ground or second leg is our ground.
See,
Doesn't
it's that
matter.
mentality where you're not going to win it now.
No. I'm just being realistic. Like that doesn't mean we cannot beat them. I actually think we can beat them. They've good things. Dortmund have even shown that they're quite vulnerable, but in some cases. But if I had to pick my favorites right now, my favorite is Barcelona, regardless of. By the way, I actually think when we play against a team that you're not familiar with, playing the first leg at home actually is better, in my opinion, because imagine when you play a new team that you're not used to, especially like I take the Madrid game as an example. You're playing against a beast that you're not aware of. You're not used to that kind of team. You're never used to playing against a team of Madrid.
You are the beast or Madrid are the beast?
Madrid, yeah, Baba. Wait, Madrid with their attacks and stuff, with their attackers and all. If you end up playing a team like them, that already is a concern. Plus, playing away the first game, it's like a double whammy. But I feel like when you play against a team like Madrid and you play at home the first game, it kind of balances things out and lets you settle in the game. And by the time you play the second leg, at least you're aware of the kind of opponents you're playing.
Fair. Just before I tell you guys, here, by the way, cooking food and you guys are having a good conversation. I like you. This is called the Rational League. Egal, welcome to the Rational League. It's just different. It's different. No, we'll invite you.
We're talking about Arsenal now, so it's going to go irrational.
It is going to be irrational, to be honest. Because, so you think Barcelona are favorites to win this competition because of what?
I think they have. I rate Hansi Flick tremendously. I think he's a fantastic manager. I think they have
Amazing.
The best overall team. I look at their attack; it's incredible. Lewandowski's having one of his best seasons, even at that age. Yamal, I think, is one of the best wingers in the world. Rafinha probably is going to win the Ballon d'Or if he keeps going at this rate.
Rafinha has the same GA in the league as Mbuemo and Crestwood, so yes, fine.
yeah, fair. But the Champions League,
in a much better team.
But he's got like 11 or 12 Champions League goals, and that should be taken into account. And a lot of them are against like big teams in big moments. It's not even like, oh, he just stat pads. He actually gets you winning goals, winning assists against big teams. And their defense, funny thing is, I watch Barcelona a lot. I've watched them at least 30 times probably this season. People talk about, oh, their defense is not good. They've got crap defenders. The reality is their system of defending is actually fantastic because they play with this high line, knowing that they can catch teams offside quite a lot because most teams that play against Barca try to play on the counter attack, right? And because they play with a disciplined high line, more often than not, they catch teams in offside traps, and that actually relieves some pressure versus having them to run back and defend one-on-one situations. Because one-on-one situations, let's be honest, like if they go up against like a Vinny Jr. or a Dembele or whoever it is, you still can get cooked. Versus when you try to play a good quality offside trap, and they do that really well, and that helps them win the ball back higher. And also when they build forward, they build with such creativity and they take proper risks. You know, sometimes when you see these teams play low blocks and you're like, okay, we have to go to the outside. We have to go to the outside and cross. They actually still play through the middle. They'll still try to slot in through balls through the middle, through that low block. And that for me is quality that I don't think the other three teams in the competition have, in my opinion. So yeah, that for me puts them as favorites.
I said before the Arsenal Madrid game, after the 3-0, I said I think Arsenal will go through, but I don't think they'll win it. I don't know. My opinion is starting to shift. I think Arsenal are going to win it. And I'll tell you why. More because I think Arsenal defensively right now, I think we've seen vulnerabilities in Barca and PSG. Because all three of them teams took big leads going into the second leg. I think Barca and PSG showed a little bit more vulnerability, probably to lesser teams than what Arsenal did. And I think Arsenal, the one player, I keep on going on about him because he's probably my favourite player outside of Liverpool, is Saka. I think with him coming back now, I think the impact he has to Arsenal going forward is huge. Like, if he had been fit for, say, the last 3 or 4 months, take away all the other injuries Arsenal have had, if he had been fit the last 3 or 4 months, I think Arsenal would be within touching distance of Liverpool going into the last kind of 6 or 7 games. That's how big of an impact that I think he would have on the team. And I just think with how Arteta sets them up, he doesn't concede lots of goals. They'll always be in the game. And I think that'll maybe frustrate the likes of PSG and Barcelona when they're trying to break them down. And Arsenal, may with Saka being back, they might be able to get a goal or two to win and go through in the semi-final and then probably the final.
Can I tell you why I pick Inter or from that side, by the way, just to go through? Because the second leg is at Inter. Inter players are different than the other players. we have a lot of experience in that squad. Some of them played in the Camp Nou before, right? Some of them played against City this season at the Etihad. Some of them have been here before. The majority, if I'm not mistaken, all the squad have reached the Champions League final with the manager, right? So playing at Barcelona, Inter are not going to be like Dortmund. Dortmund went in and they were the most naive team I've seen in the Champions League. They opened up and they left a lot of spaces for Lamine Yamal and Rafinha. And they got cooked. Inter are not going to do this at the Camp Nou. We're going to, even if we lose at the Camp Nou, we will make it to 1-goal margin, 2-1, 1-0, 3-2, something like this. Coming to the San Siro in opposite, the Barcelona players shat their bed at Borussia Dortmund Stadium with the fans. They literally were collapsing. They were passing the ball to the Dortmund guys. The line was crooked, right? I think they couldn't hear the manager even from the noise. And I think some of them are very young, like Lamine Yamal is very young. You know, like some of them, Pedri's experience, but the defense is very young as well. And they shat their bed. I believe the noise at the San Siro is too loud in the Champions League nights. It's very loud for them as well. And I think if Inter can keep it within touching distance in the first leg, Barcelona coming to the second leg, I think Inter can hurt them. Bayern Munich is different. Remember, Bayern Munich made sure to start Muller in the heart of the midfield in that game. Harry Kane is an experienced player. Leroy Sané is an experienced player. The only one in that team that wasn't experienced was Michael Olise, who was the most talented guy out of, and he's not 16 with all due respect. He played a lot of games at the Etihad, at Anfield with Crystal Palace. Barcelona players, literally, I saw them kicking the ball away without any aim in this game against Dortmund. And if it wasn't for an own goal, I believe that Dortmund would have brought it back. By the way,
no, but it's different though, because the reality is, for starters, they didn't start Pedri, who's been probably the best or one of the best midfielders this season. And I say the best not because he scores or assists, it's because he controls the way they build up. He controls the way they win possession back. I read this stat on WhoScored.com 2 weeks ago or a month ago, where it said no central midfielder has won possession more times than Pedri. So he does not only do the attacking side, he also does the defending side of winning the ball back and circulating again. That's one. And second, and even Balde not being there, Balde I think makes a big difference to the way they play with the highlight, the way they run back.
He's not coming back.
He's coming back end of April. He's coming back end of April, so he might be there.
As well.
The thing is, sorry, Jamie, I'll just end on this. And you mentioned, the first game. I agree. I don't think you're definitely not like Dortmund. You're not going to go there, open up and get slapped up. I don't think it's crazy to say that they can win by 1 or 2 goals.
Not a bus.
But that's why I mentioned the low block, because they're good also at playing against low blocks. And even if they win by 1 goal, let's actually assume that happens. That means when you go to the second leg at your ground, you have to open up more. And if you open up more, that also gives them opportunities. That's why I feel like
we don't.
Yeah, but Mo as well. You need to remember, like, it's not as if he has won 2-0 against Bayern Munich. Like, it was 4-3 in aggregate. You can see the 3 goals across 2 legs.
Yeah,
so
you
do have, like, and even in the first game, like, Bayern did have their opportunities in the first half. So, like, there is going to be chances that Barcelona are going to get, and with the quality they have and the form that, like, Rafinha, Yamal, and Lewandowski are in, like, you would put your money on them to score.
We will,
and they're good in corners. They score corners as well. People wouldn't realize.
If you watch, I was going to say this. If you watch how we conceded the goals, one of them is a fluke. The Eric Dyer goal is a fluke. The second one was the Harry Kane one was a brilliant finish by him because DiMarco is not good enough defensively. And I think the goal in the first leg was also a panic when in a set piece. I don't think we are favorites to go through as much as like 5% more, just because the second leg is on our ground. Because I always give the team that plays the second leg a little bit of an edge, because they can go away and defend and take it back to their stadium. I do that for all the teams that reach the semi-final. I don't think that we are like massive favorites against them, but I think we are the kryptonite for a team like Barcelona. Basically, Inter are the best team in the world to play a low block, because even though we all play low block, once we pass the ball, we are the best in passing it through the lines at the current moment in the world, even when we play low block. It shows when we scored against Bayern.
Atletico Madrid are like that as well, no? Atletico Madrid also play the exact same resolute type of football. And I would argue going forward,
they don't play
the you guys. And they don't
play through the lines like us. Also, we are very comfortable having even possession. Before we scored the goal in the first leg against Bayern Munich, I think we had 35 to 40 passes that I didn't count. The ball went up and back 4 times before we scored, and we lured them in, and then we broke their line. I think it will be intriguing. I'm not saying it's a full-on conclusion we're favorites,
It will.
but I still think that people that say that Barcelona are just favorites, that they're going to smash Inter, they're doing the same thing that they said to Arsenal against Real Madrid, because they don't watch both teams, they just don't know. I think it'll be closer than what we think. There will be a goal in it or something. Might go to extra time. I'm not sure, but I trust my team to go through. On
the only thing I'll say on Yamal, because you said 16, he's 17 years old, whatever. I don't think that applies. I agree. Like, I think Mourinho said this years ago, and it's 100% true. A player's age doesn't matter. It's the number of games he's played. That's the actual experience. You could be a 20-year-old who's played 200 games, and you're more experienced than a 25-year-old who's played 100 games. The guy has played the Euros, where he played in the finals, was one of the best players in the tournament. He's been impactful for Barcelona the last 2 seasons. I don't think his age comes into play, because he has handled big pressure before, so I don't feel he'll be phased out by that.
I agree.
Did he play in the Champions League last season?
Yeah,
he did, but I mean, they got knocked out at the quarterfinals, no?
To PSG, wasn't it?
Yeah. Araujo,
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was last season. Was that his breakout season? Did he start coming in like at the start?
Last year,
Yeah. Correct.
So he's only
when I said
through.
last 2 seasons, I meant this season and last season. That's what I meant. Yeah.
I think we'll see. I'm so intrigued.
Do you know what? And like, I think we talk a lot about standard of football nowadays. They're actually all really good ties. Like, they'll all be interesting in different ways. The standard of players, I think everyone has like threats. I think defensively, a lot of the teams are good. Like Barcelona with their high line, maybe Inter Milan with like a little bit more solidified. Same on the other side. I think PSG have looked good defensively this season. Arsenal obviously really good, but then going forward, they're going to be really, really good games. And I think this is what people keep on like talking about. We want to see good football matches, and I think that's what we're going to get. So,
do you think they're the best 4 teams in the world at this moment in time?
No, Liverpool. I think Barca are there. I think
PSG has
do you think
to
if
be
you
there,
took Arsenal out for Liverpool, you'd have it?
I don't know. Like PSG, I don't know. Like, I think PSG are. I know
they've already wrapped the league up.
Yeah, they've already knocked Liverpool out. Like, even when they played Liverpool in the second leg, they rested all of their players. Not one of their players was starting in the league. So it's hard to judge PSG sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. I think it all depends, like, on their day as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, Liverpool on another day could have played really well and knocked PSG out if they had maybe scored one at Anfield. But I think, listen, the pudding is in, or the proof is in the pudding. Like, the teams that are there deserve to be there because of the quality that they had, and they did it on the day. So I think, right now they're probably the best 4 teams in the world.
Quality of defense of Arsenal and Inter are better than the one Barca played. You will say Atletico Madrid, but they play each other. They play what? You will say Atletico Madrid, but they play each other regularly. Yeah, that's different. The surprise factor is just different. Going to Arsenal and PSG, does anybody think that Arsenal are going to go through?
Yeah.
Or it's a 50-50?
Yeah, I think they'll go through.
I think they might, I think beating Real Madrid can give you so much momentum and belief that it can swing the whole Champions League in your favour. I think it can do that much.
Yeah, I agree.
I had as a slight favorites, but now I would say it's more of a 50-50, because I think
what changed?
Partey has been so impactful for us this season. I think him missing that first leg is impactful, especially given that we have very limited options. Like, if Partey was injured, missing the first leg, and then we had everyone else available, I'd say, okay, Havertz starts up top, and then, Moreno or whatever goes in the middle. I don't know what Arteta's going to do. And I don't even know if Calafiori will be back, because for me, my preferred option is, if Calafiori is back, play him as left back and play Lewis Kelly in the middle, which is his actual position anyways. I think at least for that one game, it's a band-aid solution. But now without Partey in the middle, we are.
Why do I have this surprise that Kai Havertz will be fit at the end of April? Like, they are just.
They're saying he's coming back. They're saying he's coming back.
They're so silent about it. I have a feeling that he'll be fit. Wasn't he injured in Dubai in February?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hamstring. Oh, hamstring. Sorry.
It's the same timeline as Saka. 3 months.
Apparently, no. I don't know if it's the same injury though. He's ripped his hamstring off the bone, so I don't know if it's like the same.
He's not coming back.
We were talking about that though. They do surgery now for every hamstring injury. So like, he could potentially be back. What? So February, 8 weeks.
February, March, April. 12 weeks. February, March, April.
Was it
I
It's the
started?
same
Yeah.
timeline as Saka, yeah, but I think it is slightly worse. If I'm not wrong.
It would be incredibly harsh on Marino to be dropped for Havertz
Yeah.
at this moment in time as well, because
Oh,
I think
I
he's done a
actually
really
think
good
it has
job.
Rice then needs to go in 6.
Well, Rice has
Yeah.
the versatility to do that, doesn't he? That's the beauty of
Yeah,
Declan Rice.
that's why Rice, Merino, Odegaard.
Rice-
I think it will give you similar balance to similar, not as close to Partey, Rice, Odegaard. They're kind of similar. You can say.
well,
Yeah,
Ri-
but
Rice
then,
is
but then you're actually, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's so true. Just given how his performance is, you're sacrificing someone up top who actually has been clinical for us. His conversion rate is one of the best for players who's played like this many games. As much as I think Trossard is a good utility player, but I do feel there's a slight drop off in the way we play and the way we build up and the way we play the long balls. If you move Moreno out and you put Trossard in, right? And that's why I'm saying Lewis Kelly there allows us to continue everything. And Lewis Kelly is also good on the ball, so it's not like we're losing a lot on how we.
Can you
build
play
up and how we carry
Jorginho?
the
Can you play Jorginho?
No, I'd not play him even if he's fit. I don't care. No way.
Oh,
Not against
God.
that midfield.
Yeah,
Not
I
against
didn't realize.
So none of you guys. This is too modern and new for me. None of you count that the second leg is in Paris, right? Like back in the days, this used to be a massive factor.
Yeah,
But
but you
Bernabeu
take away
was
away goals.
away goals, mate.
Yeah.
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 Take
But
it
it's
away.
not about away goal. It's about you having the edge of like,
No,
okay,
it
I
is
am-
though. The
No,
away
because
goals
you had your
such a
away
big
goals
impact.
to defend, Mo.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You
Yeah.
go and get your goals, and you had your away goals to defend. So you'd put up a resolute performance with an aggregate lead.
Yeah,
Whereas
or
now that's blown out of the water.
Yeah, if you go and get a draw, like say PSG go get a draw at Arsenal, and like Arsenal, like yeah, okay, fair enough, we didn't concede, which is good, and they can nick a goal, and PSG would need 2. Do you know what I mean? That's gone out the water now. So like they want to use their advantage either side. It kind of it does make it a little bit more like on the
This
edge.
is
They can
exactly
go either
what
way.
UEFA's plan was for removing away goals, is to remove that
it's fantastic.
sort of
Actually.
yeah. It has worked, to be fair to them. And so
The only advantage that it's still there is extra time. That's it. Outside, I don't think there's any difference.
I think they need to
Only-
fix it. Actually, I think they need to fix something like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. Because
There
I
has
think
to be
United, if they
something
were
done about
playing,
it.
if United were playing away from home last night,
Yeah.
I don't think they end up winning that way. Like the home advantage in the 30 minutes extra, I think
Yeah.
that makes a difference.
Yeah, because you imagine, yeah, exactly. Imagine that was like they got 4 away goals, or they were, yeah, because it would have been 2-2 after full time, or it would have been 4-4 after
Yeah,
full
it will
time.
be. The game will be done
Would have
in
been
extra
gone, yeah.
time. Yeah, it will
Whereas,
be
like,
done.
that's a moment that you don't get. And I think even if you go back to like the early kind of mid 2000s, I always think of the Chelsea Liverpool games back then. Like it was like 1-0. Then it was like they would like win 1-0 at home.
2-1. There's 1-0
1-0.
and 2-1. I remember the Chelsea Liverpool 1-0
Yeah.
and 2-1.
And I think we went through in 2007 when we knocked him out. I think Jeremy missed a penalty, and that was like 1-1.
Wasn't it 1-1 and 4-4 or something? Or
4-4 was a few years later.
4-4 and
It was
1-1
the year after.
Later.
Yeah,
But that was because Liverpool went into extra time and then Chelsea just blew us away. I remember Drogba got one in near post. Pepe Reina made a mistake. But I think the no away goals, it does make it more compelling, because if you score an away goal, it's like realistically straight away you're like, oh, now we need 2. Do you know what I mean? And like that just takes a lot more momentum than like just trying to push everything for 1.
Yeah.
I think the away goals, if a team got their advantage in the away leg that they played away first, I think it killed off the tie in the fact that they would pretty much 9 times out of 10 part the bus and attempt to hold on to their lead.
Yeah.
And it would just nullify the game. And that is probably how Chelsea won the Champions League in a number of occasions because of that rule. But at the same time now, if a team gets a lead away from home, it doesn't mean too much, because the other team, like you said, Jamie, can go and nick a goal, 2 goals, and the tie's completely
sleep on it and it's done. Yeah,
This is why the Villa
can't
game was
take the
super
risk
exciting.
of parking the bus anymore and have the same reward that you used to be able to get.
This is why Villa's game was super exciting, because they were 3-2 up and they needed 1 more goal to continue.
All the goals were, though, if you think about it, right? Villa's was Dortmund took Barcelona to a tighter place than they probably thought they were going to be in that game. Dortmund came out the blocks absolutely flying. Inter were defending right to the last minute when Koeman had that shot, though. Like
we need to. I think someone need to send Inzaghi that the rules have changed. There is no away goals, because he was defending 2-1 as he scored 2 goals away. From minute 1.
That's going to be his mentality that he's grown up in football with as an Italian, isn't it? Is to defend what you have. That's how Italian teams have notoriously won trophies, isn't it? By the way, I think if I was an Arsenal fan, I would play Jorginho. You know. I would love
No,
I feel
no.
like-
I would
He said the boy with Arsenal fan with his Chelsea hat on.
Joao Neves and Vitinha, I think, would just absolutely slaughter him.
Yeah,
Like,
they would indeed. Yeah.
yeah.
I play
I think honestly,
I would
like,
play him.
that's what I'm saying. If we have Lewis Kelly, Rice, and Odegaard, I still think that midfield can get work done. And if we manage to win the first game, even if it's by 1 goal, going to the second leg, knowing Partey is back, I think that allows us to say, okay, we can go there and control the game. It's not crazy to think that we can go to the Parc des Princes and not concede or not lose the game. But if we go there having a goal deficit or even drawing, I think it puts us in a difficult spot.
I've
Do you know
been
what?
so impressed with Arsenal as well because I feel like they're the only team out of the quarterfinals that we saw that really didn't wobble. In both games, you were very, very consistent. You were resolute, weren't really phased by the opposition. You probably had the most difficult tie in Real Madrid and what it feels like to go away at the Bernabeu. I feel like it didn't look like that phased this Arsenal team. And I think all the other teams showed a little bit of nervousness and a little bit of uncertainty in periods of their game, and I just didn't see that from Arsenal. And for me, when a team has that in the Champions League, you can go on and win it if you can play like that. And I
actually think
that's
that
what worries me the
Arsenal-
most.
I think actually now Arsenal might have the edge over all the other teams because it's the only team that won the 2 legs.
mentally, they were
And,
mentally.
and they are the team, as you said, that they didn't actually. They didn't seem phased.
They
Like,
didn't.
Even in the second, like it was like, what
Did
is
they even
that's
wobble?
fit this
The
guy?
only wobble
But we
was,
still have a
was,
disadvantage.
was
though.
the potential Mbappe penalty.
What
You
do
know,
you
I
have
think that was the
disadvantage of the
only
injuries?
wobble.
You mean?
Yeah, but if you
I think Gabriel missing. I know people will say Kivior had an amazing 2 games. I get it, but I still think against Inter, against Barca, against PSG, I feel Gabriel gives us some assurance
He's
that
been
no
your
other
best
player
centre back
can
this
give us.
season. by a
He's been our best
mile.
centre back this season and probably last season too. Who knows? But
Kivior
yeah,
on
I
the
think
ball
missing him.
is very good. He opened Madrid up
He
at
is.
times with his passing. I was really
He is.
impressed.
He's a better passer for sure, but I just think I'd happily sacrifice that extra element of passing if I can get someone who I think can bail us out defensively a couple of times. And again, if Kivior can play the same way he did against Madrid, fair, but I don't know if he can. But
Yeah.
Gabriel at least is more of an insurance.
No, I think mentally that would be that result is huge for Arsenal because I think a lot of people always throws at them that like you don't have the bottle in Europe. Like beating Madrid, people keep on. And I see people saying in chat it's not the best Madrid.
Like he's saying, you
definitely
don't
not.
have the bottle.
They
and
are
he's
the
waving his
holders.
bottle up.
It's not the best Madrid. I agree with that. Liverpool have beat them this year. They've lost. They just about got through in the group. They knocked out a poor Man City team.
But Arsenal are not the best. They
Yeah.
have no striker.
No,
they have
but
no centre back.
No. I think Arsenal, and this is why, like, I think their form has coincided with Saka's injury. I think he offers them so much. I keep on going on about it because I think he is that level of player. And one thing I think with that PSG game is going to be very interesting is the battle between Nuno Mendes and Saka because he had such a good game over 2 legs against Salah, who was one of the most informed players leading up to that game. And
We've seen them against each other this season. They went up against each other. Saka, it was a 50-50 to be honest. Saka got him a couple of times, but then Nuno Mendes shut him down 2-3 times. So
yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they're like over 2 legs. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think Arsenal. If I was an Arsenal fan, I'd have a lot of confidence going into the 2 games and that they could potentially win it.
I think our most key player for that game, and I know this is going to sound funny, is Martinelli because the reality is this guy has been so out of form, but the games he's in form and plays well, he actually causes us. Not only do we win, but the thing is we don't only rely on the right then. When he's in form, we're able to also play on the left, switch it up a little bit. We become a little less predictable. And now you have 2 headaches to worry about. And Hakimi is one of the best right backs in the world. So if we have someone who can give him trouble and stop him from bombing forward all the time, that will become something on Hakimi's mind quite a lot.
Ash,
So,
I actually think what you almost want to allow him to bomb forward, it sort of almost set a trap because I think if you allow him and Nuno Mendes to push forwards, I think Arsenal in transition could really cause PSG issues because I think Jamie's talking about Saka. If you can isolate Saka away from Nuno Mendes in a 1-on-1 against Pacho, I think you've got every chance of him getting the better of him in that situation. I also think with Martinelli, we saw him on the breakaway for that last goal that he got, obviously, and we've seen him time and time again that in transition, he's huge. I think that's the biggest thing with moving Rice to the 6 is you lose that dynamism in midfield for the transition and the breaks.
correct.
I think if you can keep Declan Rice sort of in that sort of role that we saw him do so well against Real Madrid, that's when you have to find a way to be dynamic against PSG's incredibly dynamic midfield. And I think there's
But
moments
then-
when João Neves will move out to the left to try and control the game, which we saw him do in their last fixture. I think that's the moments when Arsenal have to sort of spring their surprise if they can win possession.
But that's
Yeah.
all the more reason why I'm saying if Partey is not available, to play Lewis Kelly there, because as good as Moreno has been in some cases at times, I think what he does is he's good on the ball, he can circulate it, but he doesn't have Rice's athleticism to carry the ball forward and sprint that way. Lewis Kelly has done it many times when he inverts, he gets the ball. He did it against Madrid, both legs, where he goes past 2-3 people just by pure athleticism. So for me, I think that is the best solution for us. And I genuinely think, and I'm not even saying it as a joke, I think what Moreno offers us up top is something we will need in games like this. One is he's very, very clinical. So when he does get chances, he's able to somehow finish them well. But I also think having a physical presence up top allows Saka and Martinelli to play off him. And it's not a coincidence that he assisted both those goals that we scored against Madrid, because he's a lot when he drops in to that half space behind like the defenders, he's able to give that kind of through ball. So I'd rather keep him there and play Lewis Kelly there just for that one game.
So maybe you
the
should
other
keep him
thing-
as your main striker next season and not sign a striker.
But
I
I
mean,
think
worked
I think that
well.
depends as well. I think
it's a joke.
I think,
It's a joke, guys. Ashraf
I
only
think-
knows what a joke.
I think
I'm
pushing Lewis Kelly into
Joke.
midfield is a risk, because I think with Gabriel out, maybe you could do that. But I think with Keyword there and then putting, maybe I don't know who you would put in if Calafiori, if he's
Calafiori,
back,
yeah.
or if
I wouldn't do
or
that.
God forbid Zinchenko. But
Oh,
I think-
stop it. Not
I think-
Zinchenko.
I would, I don't know. I would keep Lewis Kelly there, because I think the form that he's in now, I think it's similar to like Trent at Liverpool. Like playing right back and stepping into midfield is very different to playing in midfield. And I think Lewis Kelly now is like, sometimes he'll go wide, he'll create a little bit of width. Sometimes he'll step in at the right time. I think his game intelligence is very good. And I think when he does play left back, some of the runs that he actually makes when he picks the ball up and starts driving with the ball, I think when he has someone behind him that can maybe shovel across, or someone that like he can see the whole game and he can make that run. Whereas if you're in midfield, someone might be coming behind you. His game intelligence has to be a lot better, and which I think might not be ready for that game against PSG, if that makes sense.
Jamie, in that case, Moreno should play as a 6, not Rice, because I don't think we should sacrifice Rice's ability as an 8 when he
Carry
drives
the
the ball.
ball, yeah.
Carrying
Is
the
Ben
ball.
White injured, bro? Is Ben White injured?
No,
he's
he
back.
came off against Madrid.
Ben White's
Maybe Timber on the left, Ben White on the right side, and play
That's a
Lewis
shout. That's a
Yeah,
shout.
not
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I agree with that. That makes sense as well.
I
But to
think
be
that
honest,
should work.
they're better. The most dangerous player they have plays on the right wing for them. So probably Timber against Dembele is maybe better in that side, because Timber is our best defender, best fullback.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How
So yeah,
good
that's
is
not
he?
a bad shout.
Maybe
How good
Kvaratskhelia
was he
will-
against Vinny? He was.
I actually think
unbelievable.
they would have won the league last season had he been fit. I
Timber?
think he could have been. Yeah, I
He's
think
that
he
good.
was that good that certain games that they were poor in defensively. I think against like Fulham and Villa, I feel like someone like him could have made the difference in those games. I mean, I know that's a massive if, but I think he's been that good. I think he's been that important, and to lose him that early on last season for that many games, I mean, you can just see the difference when he's playing this season. One thing that I don't think's brought up enough about this PSG side is their real lack of an out-and-out striker. I know Dembele's kind of stepped into that role, but there were times when I was watching them against Liverpool, Jamie, where I felt like if they'd had that striker, potentially they could have opened up doors that were shut by Liverpool's resolute defence at times. And I feel like they didn't have it, and they got away with it ultimately because of what happened in that game in the end. But I think if Arsenal can find a way to sort of limit them where they've been so dangerous in transition, like they did against Real Madrid, I almost look at it and think they haven't really got any answers when they're forced into sort of no transition football. They're on the edge.
Individual dribbling, then. Individual dribbling.
Individual
It
brilliance.
is exactly, and it's
Individual
moments like
dribbling.
Our
Kvara
fullbacks were
scoring
good
that
at that.
goal. It's moments like Kvara scoring that goal. But I look at when they've looked at Ramos for like the last couple of minutes in games to bring him on, and I just wonder whether that he needs his moment, to come on in there. But other than that, I think that's a massive weakness that this PSG team have got that no one's really spoken about. I also think there could be a mistake.
But you know what the problem with this is, Dan? Is that Arsenal and Arteta, if PSG do what they did against Aston Villa and sat a little bit deeper and didn't press, Arsenal will come out. In opposite to a team like Inter, for example, we might not come out. Arsenal will go forward and they will leave space. and they will leave a one-on-one at the back for Dembele against someone, or Kvaratskhelia against someone, or Barcola.
Do you see Arsenal doing that though?
Yes,
Yeah.
man. Arteta,
Do
it's
it
so
against Madrid.
they did it in the Arteta is someone who, when they have the ball, he likes a lot of passes and pushes the whole team forward a little bit, with Raya passing the ball between the two center backs, and they all push forward with it. And if
They're
I
this
hear
is
that more,
over,
but we're also
in position that situation never occurred against Real
Exactly.
Madrid.
And by
It
the way,
did,
the
it did,
few
but
moments
they
it
were
has,
bad.
yeah,
The
yeah.
first game it
No,
did.
but the few moments it does occur throughout the season,
And even the second leg.
our players are so good in returning back to defend.
Yeah.
Literally within a few seconds, you see even Saka and Martinelli, everyone is back. So
Yeah,
I'm
Saliba's
not
got
that worried
incredible
about
recovery pace. Like,
amazing
they
both
do
of them.
with
And Lewis Kelly, I was reading again, who scored. Put this again today. I think he's the only player in the Premier League this season who plays 15 plus games to not be dribbled past one. So this is why I go back to what Jamie said.
we don't like that woke stat in here. Like,
yeah. But the reality is, I've seen him in because I'm just thinking of Timber and Lewis Kelly. I'm trying to think, have I seen them get cooked this season by against top wingers? And I haven't really seen that. I know
Timber
Dembele is
doesn't
an
get
absolute.
cooked. Can we just establish Timber doesn't get cooked?
At all. I said that, you remember, at the start of the season when I said I think he's the most complete fullback, and people are like, "Oh, what are you on about?" I'm like, guys, just watch, because honestly, he's so good going forward, but he's also good in one-on-one situations. He's got pace, he's got physicality, he can play center back, which is what makes him it allows him to read the passes really well. That moment when Saliba slipped was the first leg when Saliba slipped and they played a through ball. It was Timber that suddenly switched and slid and recovered that ball. So just thinking of how our fullbacks have been against tricky wingers, I am leaning more towards what Jamie was saying, and that is sticking maybe Lewis Kelly back on left back, because I do feel I understand what you're saying more about Ben White, but I don't know if we're going to get Ben White of last season. That's my only concern, because he hasn't played enough games this
Not
season.
sure.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think we'll see. Let me do these super chats. AMT saying again, it's Real Madrid. Arsenal players were enjoying it. They were definitely enjoying it. They were absolutely enjoying it. And how about Turnier's left back? That's a no-go, my man. That's a no-go.
Against
that would be
Dembele.
concerning, you know.
Or Doué.
Doué, Dembele, and Kvara could all just switch out there at any moment.
It'd just be like 3 PSG players playing right wing. No
one on the left.
You know, like Madrid had Mbappe and Vinny on the same side. Like, it would literally be out and out.
Anyway, listen, people, I want to thank everyone that joined. That was an absolutely phenomenal conversation that we had. All the guys' channels in the description. Dan's channel, Rory, of course, Staffy, Tom Little, and all the regular guys that are here. Ashraf Talks Football in the description. The Football Story, Jamie's channel. Go. Not a lot of people like his takes, especially Arsenal fans. They like a rival that doesn't banter them. So let's go and support Jamie, the Football
There's
Story.
lots more room for that coming.
Just go and subscribe to all the guys, of course. I will see you guys tomorrow, maybe. There's not a lot to talk about tomorrow. Maybe Newcastle tomorrow, if they be 1 point behind Arsenal. Hit the like button before you go, and we'll see you guys soon.